four parshas that we read between the time before Purim until before Pesach. The first of these four parshas is called Parsha Shkolim because we give in commemoration of the fact that in the times of the Beis Hamikdash they would announce on Rosh Chodesh Adar, they would announce that people should prepare to give the half a shekel that they had to give to support the communal offerings in the Beis Hamikdash. So therefore, the Shabbos that either falls out on Rosh Chodesh Adar, like this year, or the Shabbos prior to Rosh Chodesh Adar, like many years, we read Parsha Shkolim in addition to the Parsha of the Torah, which teaches about the mitzvah Machzah Shekel, as it was in the Midbar in the times of Moshe Rabbeinu. And there's a lot of interesting, deep concepts in this mitzvah that we are going to discuss in this mimer. Now, some of the things are going to be said in very short bursts, if you will. We might need to elaborate on some of the text. Ze Yitnu, this is what they shall give. It says in Pars Kisisa, Kol Oiver al Pikudim, whoever passes through the count. In other words, to count the Yidden, they would do so by having every person that was counted gave a half a shekel. Machzis ha-shekel b'shekel ha-kodesh, a half a shekel of the holy shekel. Now the holy shekel is how much was it worth? Esrim geira ha-shekel. It was 20 geira coins. The shekel was made up of 20 coins, a geira each. And of that, one did not give the full shekel, but rather machzis ha-shekel, a half a shekel, truma la-Hashem v'gomer, a donation for Hashem. It's very appropriate in a way that even though this mimer was said in Parshas Mishpatim, this week it's Parshas Truma, and the Machzah Shekel is also called a Truma, a donation, a raising up to Hashem. Umesayim, and the pasuk in Parshas Kisisa concludes, L'chaper al nafshesechem, to atone upon yourselves, upon your souls. Umedayik b'mayim, the Pashavas Parshas Mishpatim, Parshas Kol Tafresh Pei, also known by Rosh Tevis Poiros, that the Maimer of the Rebbe Rashab of Shabbos Parshas Mishpatim, Parshas Kolim 1920, it was the last year of his life. He passed away shortly afterwards in Beis Nissen. Tzarech lahavin ma'u inyan beis pa'amim machzis ha-shekel. We need to understand, why does he say twice half a shekel? Sha'omer machzis ha-shekel b'shekel ha-kodesh. Initially he says a half a shekel in the holy shekel. The koifel oid machzis ha-shekel truma Hashem, and he repeats again a half a shekel truma for Hashem. Gam, another question is ma'u inyan esrim geira ha-shekel. What's it, the idea that it says that a shekel is made up of 20 geira, shari tzarech litin rak machzah shekel. All we have to give is a half a shekel. So why is it important for the Torah to tell us what's the value of a whole shekel? If you have to tell us the value, tell us what the value is of a half shekel. Why does he have to tell us that 20 geira is the entire shekel? Also, when you understand what it says, to atone for yourselves, for your souls, like he continues and explains over there in that Maimer, the Inyan Machzis ha-shekel hu lechaper al cheta egel. The half a shekel was an atonement for the sin of the egel, like it says in Gemara Shkolim, it says also in Medrash Tanchuma. That was the meaning of the Torah when it says to atone for your souls, because there was the cheta egel, the sin of the golden calf, and this half a shekel that was given was an atonement. We need to understand what is the advantage and quality of a half a shekel to such a degree that it can atone for sins. That's a general question. A half a shekel should atone for sins? Why? The Rebbe is going to add to this, okay, maybe it could atone for sins in general, but the sin of the golden calf, we can add to this as a possible note to this question of the Rebbe Rashab. The chet ha'egel hu chet kloli. The sin of the golden calf we know is a general sin. It impacts all time. It is the source and the root for all sins throughout history afterwards. The Isa be Gemara, like it's brought down in the Gemara, the B'shas Matan Torah Poska Zum Mason, that during Matan Torah, the dirt that stuck to mankind, Shehitel Nachash B'Chava, that Nachash, the serpent, had caused in Chava's sinning, so there was a dirt that came down to the entire mankind. So by Matan Torah, the Jewish people's state was so holy and so sanctified that it got rid of that dirt. And after the sin of the golden calf, it returned. So therefore we can understand that just like we know that the sin of the Eitz Hadas, the sin that the serpent caused the dirt to come down here into this world, the tumah to come down into this world, is a very general sin, the same thing, the sin of the golden calf. But now the Rebbe is going to challenge himself. It's not identical. Though it didn't return entirely to the way it was beforehand, that the state of the Yidden being in a state of purity, because even after the sin of the golden calf, Hashem's choosing the Jewish people still remained. That we say that in us you chose in the physical body that's similar to the bodies of the nations of the world. The Alter Rebbe explains in Tanya that the idea of free choice only applies when two things are the same. If we're talking about the neshama, since the neshama of a Yid is a godly soul, the neshama of a non-Jew primarily is an animal soul, it's not possible to say that there is choice that Hashem made between us and the nations of the world. Rather, what is the choice when it says that you chose us from every nation and every language? It's referring to our bodies, because in our bodies there's no difference between us and the non-Jewish bodies. And this choice remained after the Matan Torah as well. So therefore, as much as the dirt, quote unquote, returned to us after Matan Torah, but it didn't cancel out our special state of being Yidden. Let's skip over the parentheses. So despite the fact that we are not identical to the way we were before Matan Torah, but it's similar enough to the Chet Eitzadas, Mikol Makmar Chet Egel or Chet Haklali. The sin of the golden calf is considered a general sin. To such a degree, Va'olav Ksiv, concerning the sin of the golden calf, it says, Ubeyoim Pakdi al Kol Chet Upakadati V'chul. It says that when Hashem will give a consequence for any sin, I will also combine and add to that punishment also from the sin of the golden calf. So we see how the sin of the golden calf is so encompassing that it's something that spans history and that impacts and is considered a contributing factor to all types of sin that would come later on. So going back to the original point, Machtes HaShekel, a half a shekel, should be able to take on such a major event, such a major sin like the golden calf. According to this, it demands even a greater explanation. What is the advantage of a half a shekel that atones for this sin? Like I mentioned earlier, that from this donation of a half a shekel, they purchased the communal offerings throughout the entire year. So throughout the entire year, they brought every morning a Tamid Shel Shachar, the morning Tamid, and they closed off all the karbonos with the afternoon Tamid. When there were special dates, there were other karbonos added called Karban Musafim, additional karbonos. So on Rosh Chodesh, on Shabbos, on Yom Tovim, Then there came special karbonis just because of Yom Tov. On Sukkot, there was a whole bunch of oxen that was brought every single day of Sukkot, minimizing further. And when they had to bring the carbon Eimer, all these, anything that was representing the community, wasn't for a private person, for their own private donation or sin offering or anything like that. Anything that was brought on behalf of the community was purchased with a half a shekel. So he says, the inyan karbonis ato, inyan tefillah. We know that at present. What are the karbonis now? It's now, tefillah, the Chazal say, b'makim karbonis tiknum, k'mayim razal tefillah's b'makim karbonis tiknum, that the davenings were established in the place of the karbonis, and that's why we daven Shacharis in the morning, corresponds to the morning carbon tamid. We daven Shacharis in the afternoon. We daven Mincha in the afternoon, corresponding to the evening tamid. And Ma'ariv has to do with the rest of the limbs, organs that were burnt on the Mizbeach later on. And the Musaf that we daven on Rish Chodesh, on Shabbos, on Yom Tov, and so on, those correspond to the Musaf Karbanos that were brought in the Beis HaMikdash. So therefore, based on the fact that the Machzah Shekel in the olden days was brought from it, the Karbanos Tzibur, the public offerings, the communal offerings, and now the offerings are replaced by davening, so therefore there has to be the idea of a half a shekel also in our davening as well. And we're moving for this understood. The inyan machzah shekel yeshna gamkim avodas tefillah. Idea of a half a shekel is also to be found in the avodah of davening. Okay, second paragraph on this page, ois base. L'havin kol zeh, to be able to understand all this, Mamshech levar ba'maimer inyan tefillah. The Rebbe Rashab continues to explain in his maimer the idea of davening, and to explain davening, maybe al zeh maimer azal, he brings the what the statement of Chazal that says, Ein oimdim lispal el matach chayved rosh. A person may not begin to daven only out of literally heaviness of head. What it means, you have to have a serious demeanor. You have to be focused and so on. And we're going to explain the deeper meaning of Kavod Rosh. So now the Rebbe adds to what the Rebbe Rashab said. V'yesh lahoysiv, as we could add al pi mashkasa b'toysiv b'msechtes menachas shaloshin ein chulu ela chulu b'olim mayik sheposel b'di'evid. There's a toysvis in Masechtes Menachas that says that when the Chazal say ein, like in this case, ein oimdim ela, we do not do this only anytime when it has like this double negative, not negative, but this full exclusion. We don't do it only. That means if you don't do it in that way, so that teaches you that it's even after the fact, it's invalid. There are certain things that is encouraged to do, and after the fact, if you didn't do it, b'di'evad, it's still fine. But the Tosfos says, but when Chazal used the word ein ella, that means that's completely invalid. So the Rebbe says the same thing over here, where it says ein oimdim lispal el metoch kavod rosh, that this kavod rosh, whatever it is so crucial and vital to the idea of davening. V'chein and so too, pirush ha'inyan b'pashtus is also the simple meaning in the simple pshat, top of the second page. The ein oimdim lispal hainu she'ein shayich inyan atfilah. The whole idea of davening doesn't apply. Only if you have the kavod rosh, or else it's not davening. For davening to be davening, it has to be this type of connection that you're making with Hashem. Maybe I'll say Pirish Rav Magnish Satan, and the Rebbe Rashab brings the explanation of the Mezritcher Magid Shatfilah tia ala kavod sheberosh, that the davening has to be for the heaviness and the weighed downness of that's in the head. What does that mean? So he says in the third line from the top that Kashemispalel ala chisaron, when a person is davening for what he is lacking, lo yispalel ala chisaron shaloi. He shouldn't daven for what he is lacking. Ki im ala chisaron shalamayla, rather he should daven for what is lacking above. How come? I need to, I've got a problem. So the Rebbe says they are linked. Because there's no deficiency down here below. There's nothing lacking down here below, if not for the lacking above. So instead of focusing on the symptom, focus on the cause. Focus on what's lacking above. You could heal a headache or an earache by just taking, Tylenol or aspirin or whatever, or you can go to a doctor and get antibiotics if you need to get rid of the cause of it. The same thing. Yes, you could daven for the Eibusher to take away the chesaron down here below, but really you should be focused on the chesaron above, on what's lacking above that caused this deficiency down here below. And the Rebbe Rashab explains in his Maimer, the idea of the lack above, similar to what the Chazal say. When a person is suffering, what is the Shechina saying? Metaphorically speaking, kalani meroishi, kalani mizroi, that my head, woe to my head, woe to my arm. By the way, the Gemara that says that says it even by a person that is, or the case that it's speaking about is when a person is being punished by Bezdin and he's suffering that punishment, so he's deserving of it. It's not like, an innocent person. He is deserving, and Bezdin came to the conclusion that he has to be punished, and he has physical punishment administered. Even then, the Shechina says, woe to me for my head, woe to me for my arm. So the Rebbe then goes on to explain, what is that, the Shechina that we're talking about over here? The Shechina, Bechinas HaMalchus. Shechina is the level of Malchus. As we know, in many places, Chassidus brings down, Shechina is the name, is for something that is shoichin, u'meslabish, that rests and encloses itself. In other words, it comes down all the way to the lowest levels. And sheyesh ba aliyos v'yiridos. Malchus has in it ascents and descents, because since it's enclosed in this world, so our actions, kaviyachol, affect Malchus, affect the Shechina. And there are times when it's elevated through our actions, and the times when it's not that way, the opposite of that. That's what means the heaviness of the head of the Shechina, that Malchus sometimes, because of what we did, is suffering. Woe to my head, it says. Woe to my arm, it's suffering because of our actions. That's what it means. A person should not approach davening only out of heaviness of head. He has to daven for the heaviness and the deficiency that's in the head, meaning in the Shechina, that the Shechina is lacking because of whatever we may have done. That is one explanation in that Maimer Chazal, Ein oimdim lispalol matoch kovid rosh. That's the Rebbe Rashab brings from the Mezritcher Maggid. V'acharkach, and afterwards, the Rebbe quotes the Rebbe Rashab, maybe as Pirush Rabbeinu Azakin, the explanation of the Alter Rebbe in this Maimer Chazal, this is also to be found in the Maimer by that title of that Maimer Chazal of my father-in-law, of the Frierdiker Rebbe, the Roish Koi Al Neshamas Yisrael. The head is referring to Jewish souls. Why are Jewish souls called the head? Yisrael is Li Roish. Yisrael has the letters, if you play around with it, it has the letters Lamed and Yud, Yud at the beginning, Lamed at the end, which means to me, and then the middle letters, the Shin, Reish, Aleph, spell Roish. So we see that Yidden are called a Roish, are called a head. And over here there's actually the heaviness of the head that the Yidden suffer from. What is their suffering? What is their heaviness of the head? Through sins. Like it says, that says that my sins have passed over my head. Like a heavy load, they weighed me down. That's why it's called kovid roish. It makes my head heavy. So now the Rebbe says in the second paragraph on the page, that's what it means. A person does not stand to daven only out of heaviness of head. In other words, that he needs to deal with those things that are impacting that the head is being lowered. By day at tefillin through davening, not only does the person nullify the heaviness of the head, not only does he remove the heaviness of head, not only does he remove the Averis, not only does he cause that the Shekhinah is not in the state of descent, but also that he causes raising up the simple meaning, Suas Reish means count, but we'll soon talk about that it's raising it up to their skulls. What does that mean? He raises up the head till the level of their skulls that's beyond the head. Just like the skull encompasses the head, the same thing when we say Suas Roish B'nei Yisrael Gulgaloisam, you raise up the head to a level that's higher than the head to the skull. Spiritually, that means you raise up whatever level fell down that's even higher than it was before. How does one accomplish that? Why they have avoida bebirur nefsha b'hamis, when we do the avoid of refining and purifying the animal soul. Is through that we raise up the head of the godly soul. Because the root of the animal soul is from the level of tayu that preceded the world of tikkun. As we know, that tayu has much more powerful lights, and over there was a breaking of the vessels, like the Arizal explains. Chassidus brings us down a lot, and that's where the animal soul comes from. That's where klippos come from, and that's why it says ki Esav hu b'no hagadol, because that Esav is the older son, because Esav represents tayu, whereas Yaakov represents tikkun. Va'oris merubim the tayu mailim es ha'oris the tikkun. When one taps into the Nefesh Habahamis and transforms the Nefesh Habahamis, they tap into these greater lights of Tayu, which are more powerful than the lights of the world of Tikkun, and they elevate the lights of Tikkun. So that's why we're saying that Suas Roish B'nei Yisrael Legulgeloisam, you're raising up the head of the B'nei Yisrael to their skulls, that you're bringing the head to a higher level than it was before. In other words, you bring the Nefesh Elokis, the level of Yisrael, to a higher level, to the level of the greater lights of the world of Tayu. So now he's going to connect it back to the idea of Machzis HaShekel. Ois Gimel, third paragraph on the page. That's the idea of the half a shekel. When we say we give a half a shekel, what's the significance of giving a half a shekel? In many places, the Marmorim and the Rebbe speaks about it. When we do a mitzvah, we have to do it in the fullest way. You make Kiddush, you make Havdalah, you have to have a full cup. You make Hamoitzi, you make it on a complete challah, not a slice. Everything in Torah mitzvahs has to be full and complete and whole. Here, all of a sudden, when it comes to Machzis HaShekel, we specifically give a half, which is contrary to the whole idea that Torah mitzvahs has to be b'shleimus and complete and perfect. Why do we give a half? Because we are indicating a certain message, that when we give something from us down here below, it's only a half. What's it mean? It's only a half. Like the teaching of the Mizrich Magid, that Moshe Rabbeinu was told, make for yourself 2 trumpets that were used in the Beis Hamikdash, in the Mishkan, for different purposes, that these trumpets were used. And the Mizrich Magid divides the word Chatzoitzros into 2 words. Shtei Chatzoitzuris. You have that you're making 2 half forms. In other words, 2 halves of one form, of one whole. Shakadosh Baruch Hu, B'Knes Yisrael Him Beis Chatzoitzuris, that Hashem and the Jewish people are like 2 halves, 2 half forms. Hamashlimim Zeh Kaviyachol, that each one completes the other, metaphorically speaking. not only does Hashem complete us, which is obvious we're incomplete, but even Kaviyachol, we are completing Hashem. Like the Chazal say on the pasuk in Shir Hashirim, where Hashem says Yenosi, Tamosi, and so on, all these different descriptions of Hashem's love for the Jewish people. So it says, so the Chazal say Tamosi, which means whole, from the word Te'umasi, my twin, meaning it's my other half, that the Yidden are considered the other half of Hashem. What does this mean in regards to what we're talking about now? Well, we say we are a half of Hashem, we are giving a machzis hashekel. That means, like we were saying, we complete Hashem. We cause an aliyah as well above. This means through doing his service in the 10 soul powers, he affects an ascent also above, like we said before, that through the elevation of our head, we cause the elevation to the highest most levels. That's why it's also the idea of 10 Gera. The 10 Gera indicates my 10 soul powers. Now, in the avodah itself, there's two halves also. Not just I am a half for Hashem's other half, but in myself there are two halves. He elevates the 10 soul powers of the animal soul. And through that he affects also an ascent in my other half. What's my other half? The godly soul is the other half of the animal soul. Because now, like we said before, the great lights of the world of Tayu elevate the more constricted and limited lights of the world of Tikkun. And now the Rebbe will connect the two explanations that we had earlier in the idea of Kovid Rosh above. First we said Kovid Rosh means that a person has to daven about the Kovid Rosh of Hashem, of the Shekhinah. Another meaning of Kovid Rosh, the heaviness of the head, meaning of the Yid. And the Rebbe is going to connect these two explanations. Last paragraph on the page, we could say, this is also the connection of the two explanations in the heaviness of the head. The head of above and the head of the neshama, the godly soul. What's the connection? Just like the refinement of the 10 powers of the animal soul, which is indicated by the fact that a half a shekel is made up of 10 gera coins, since a whole shekel is 20 gera. We elevate the higher half, which we said in the person himself. The higher half is Eser Koiches, the Nefshel Kis, is in the 10 powers of the godly soul. So that's what it means. The Kovid Rosh of the Yid himself is being elevated. In a similar vein, when it's referring to the heaviness of the head of above, meaning when we're talking about the heaviness of the Shekhinah's descent through our missteps, if you will. So we have the same idea as well. He goes on and says, because through Hashem assisting the person, the person elevates the 10 soul powers, the 10 powers of his soul, descended down here below. And the permission, the rulership, the capability was given to every person that he could use that and elevate it to the highest places. Through that, he also affects an ascent also in the Shekhinah. So that's what it means. He's davening for the Kovid Rosh, both of his godly soul. It's heavy through the sins, and also the Shekhinah above. So when he elevates his godly soul, he also elevates the Shekhinah above. So now we can understand what we said before, the connection, how this could help with atonement for sin, especially such a severe and general sin like the sin of the golden calf. With this would be understood, but he concludes, to atone for your souls, that through this we effect the repair of the sins until the sin of the golden calf. Since through refining the sparks, like we said, we're refining the 10 soul powers of the animal soul. So he goes up to a much higher level than where the Nefesh Elokis was before, to the level that Tayu preceded the world of Tikkun. Or the Mailam is even more than that, higher than that, in a place that Yaakov is the firstborn, even though in actuality Esav was the one that was born first, and therefore indicates how Toyu, which is representative, or which Esav represents, is higher than Yaakov, who represents Tikkun. But then there's a higher level where Yaakov Avinu is even higher than Esav. And like Rashi brings the Chumash, like an example of a tube, that the droplet that enters first goes out last. So therefore, Yaakov Avinu was really first in being created in conception. Ad l'maylam is until even higher than the level where Yaakov is considered the firstborn. In a place where they are beyond even any differentiation, in a place where they're both the same, like it says in the Navi, Esav Yaakov, that Esav, behold, is not Esav a brother to Yaakov, meaning that it's such a high level where Esav and Yaakov are not distinguished. Until the simple, pure, non-complex unity, Hari Pashut, Hu Shemisham Nimshach Tikkun Kol Chasrayis V'Apegamim V'Chulu. It's obvious that when we tap into such a high level, it's brought down the repair of all types of deficiencies and all types of blemishes, etc., and therefore it can repair even such a severe and general sin like the Chet Eitzadas. Now that's the idea that it says 20 Gera that we asked before. Why tell us how much the worth of a whole shekel is? Tell us how much a half a shekel is. Why does he have to tell us 20 Geras a shekel? The Isa b'Sefer HaBoyer, it's brought down in a very early Kabbalah Sefer called Sefer HaBoyer, Es Spheres Malmata Lamai Lo Yadanu Malmai Lamata Yadanu. The 10 spheres from below to above we did not know, from above to below we knew. In other words, the 20 Gera is talking about two types of 10 spheres. 10 spheres the way it goes from above to below, and 10 spheres going from below to above. So 10 spheres going from above to below is the regular thing that we know, Chachma, and then Bina, and then Chesed, and then all the way down to Malchus. 10 spheres from below to above, he says we didn't know. What that means, I'm not exactly sure. It means an elevation in the sphere is going from Malchus up higher, all the way to Urish Chachma, but the Rebbe explains, Lo Yadanu in a deeper meaning. Not we don't know, what it's about, but rather through the avoid in the 10 spheres from below to above, meaning the avoid, like we said before, of refining the animal soul and elevating all the negative, etc. We draw down from the level that we did not know, meaning a level, meaning an idea, it's beyond knowledge whatsoever, similar to what the Rebbe speaks in many the Purim, Amorim, and Sichis about, says that a person has to imbibe so much, ad the lo yada, until he doesn't know, meaning reaching a level that transcends comprehension. So in a similar vein, the Esrim Gera, the 20 Gera, is that when we work with our 10 koiches, and we refine our nefesh habamis, we reach to such a high level of 10 that's beyond our comprehension. So the third paragraph on the page. This is also why this would repair the sin of the golden calf. The sin of the golden calf was when Moshe delayed in coming down. The Chazal say, do not read it as boishesh, which means he was delayed, but read it the 6th hour came. Shabbat shish shoshish, at the 6th hour of the day, in middle of the day when they thought Moshe Rabbeinu was supposed to come, he did not return from the 40 days being on Har Sinai. Chatzi ayom, midday, v'loy ba, he didn't come. And when you vatikun laza, hu aide avoida the machzah shekel dafke, that the repair for this was specifically through the avoida of machzah shekel, that could repair this type of thing. It's not clear over here why he brings in over here the bo sheish. It says a maimer in the Torah that's a machzadik, but I guess we'll leave that. Ois hey, final paragraph. Hine kishem shaydein sinas machzah shekel krivu karbonos b'chol hashana. Just like through giving the half a shekel, they offer the sacrifices throughout the year. Al derech zeh ba'avoida, so too the avoida that we're talking about over here has to be as well. There has to be this avoida throughout the entire year. In a way of joy, of gladness of heart, out of much and goodness. And the hainu, this means the tmuras instead of the fact that he was lacking koil, koil will be from much of everything. Well, the milam is an even greater, higher than this. That it's greater 1 hour in tshuva and good deeds in this world from the entire life of the world to come. So therefore, when we do tshuva, we have even greater than the level of koil. Koil, Chassidus explains, it's talking about the world to come and so on. But for a reason that's only known to the Creator. So now all these matters and all these levels are not revealed, even though we're doing the avodah of machzah shekel. That will be revealed the glory of Hashem, and all flesh will see together. That speedily will fulfill the mitzvah of the half a shekel in the third base of Mikdash, and shamas begufim, souls enclosed in bodies, out of appropriate health and a comfortable health, and they will awaken and sing those that are resting in the earth. With them, and a great congregation will return here because of Mam.